All right, let's go ahead and get started. So we are excited to have everybody on to hear about a new member benefit, the CMBA Retirement Advantage Plan. We have some exciting stuff to go over. So I am going to, I introduce myself, Melanie Farrell, Director of Membership at the CMBA. I'm going to introduce Jason Harris, a financial advisor with Equitable Advisors and a great friend and partner to the CMBA over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
That's Jason, whenever you're ready.
Excellent. So thank you, Melanie, and welcome everyone. Yeah, as Melanie had mentioned, we're really excited today to launch the 401k program. This is something we've been working on and had conversations with for a while now, and we're excited to finally roll it out. With me today is my team. I have my co-partner, David Barth, as well as we have our third-party administrator, Steve Renner. Steve's going to go through some actual numbers and show everyone just kind of what the power of this program could be, as well as some different options. And then also my partner from TransAmerica, Michael Conant. And Michael's actually going to go through some of the features, the benefits, some of the details of the plan. But, we're really excited to launch this program. Having done this before and having this in different organizations, we know that there are some needs that law firms have, whether you're a solo law firm, mid-sized law firm, or even a solo attorney. A lot of times it doesn't make sense for a firm to bring on a full-time human resource person. Maybe you don't have the resources to have a controller. When you think about health insurance or any kind of employee benefit that you're going to offer, that can take some administrative time. So we find that sometimes law firms don't want to offer this kind of benefit just because of the administrative burden that this could carry. And with the new CMBA program, we hope to help alleviate some of that, as well as just try to provide a more hands-on approach, somebody you can actually sit down, meet with, somebody that can work with with all the attorneys or employees in the office, somebody that can be there as a resource for you, not only on the investment side but also on the administrative side. And that's kind of where Steve and Mike are going to dive into the details of what that means. So what we're going to do today is, in a second here, I'm going to hand it off to Mike. Feel free to ask questions as we go, but we're also going to leave time at the end if you have specific questions about anything that we covered. If you have questions about your specific situation, best probably to set up a meeting one-on-one to discuss that. But at the end, I'm also going to talk about who are some ideal candidates, who would be ideal for this plan, as well as talk about some things that you may not be thinking about. But as you tune in today and as you go through this, just try to think about your specific situation and if any of this applies to you specifically, or if you could answer any of these questions on your own. And if you can't, then maybe that's another great indicator that we need to get together. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it off to Michael and he'll take it from here.
Thanks, Jason, and good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We're excited about officially rolling out this new member benefit available to you. We feel like this is a pretty compelling solution for a lot of the reasons that Jason talked about before. We know that as a small business, oftentimes liability concerns, resource concerns, particularly in a post-pandemic world now where using benefits like a 401k plan are important for both recruiting and retention purposes. We know that that's an important thing to kind of have in your arsenal of benefits available to your employees. But we also know that these kinds of retirement plans are maybe not necessarily as straightforward or as easy as you might think. Oftentimes there are concerns, whether you have a plan right now or have thought about implementing a plan, about the risk, the time, all of the necessary activities associated with plans. And so we wanted to make sure that you truly understand what we're trying to accomplish here. And that ultimately is a solution that's kind of designed to address a lot of these concerns. And what we've done is we've really assembled a team for you. As a business owner, oftentimes you're charged when thinking about member benefits and hiring all of these individuals that you see here on the screen. You've got to interview folks, you've got to determine what's important. And so a lot of this has really been done for you through the creation of this group plan solution, for the CMBA. What's interesting about it is that not only does it have sort of what I would consider to be the traditional or the routine service providers associated with the program, in that you need a record keeper, you need a firm to take care of plan documents, you need a group of individuals like Jason and Dave who will help with financial advice and guidance, to your employees. But there's also some additional fiduciary services embedded in here, which oftentimes can be cost prohibitive, or oftentimes are not something that's even available to plans of certain size. And the concept behind all of this is that we are aggregating and grouping small businesses together to hire this team to perform services for them at a negotiated rate. And specifically, just some of the things that we're doing for you, and not to get too much into the weeds here, but we've got a firm that's going to be responsible for the oversight and the monitoring of the investment lineup. We have a group in Rea Associates that's going to be handling all of the compliance work, the testing work, but also the filings necessary for the plan. TransAmerica, the firm that I am employed with, is doing a lot of the day-to-day functions, the fulfillment, the distributions, the record keeping, and the processing of things. And then Jason and David are obviously handling a lot of the relationship management, but also the interaction and engagement with all of your employees as well. So there's a lot of things happening here, but what's truly unique about it is that, in the context of just what a small business faces on a day-to-day basis, knowing that in 2022, for example, when the Department of Labor randomly audited existing 401k plans, in over 73% of their audits, they found issues. And when you look into those issues even more deeply, over 90% of those issues had something to do with administration or operations of the plan. And so it's clearly just an area that a lot of small businesses and even large businesses to some extent struggle with. They may not simply be aware of all of the responsibilities and tasks that are on their plate when offering a retirement plan. And the goal of this arrangement is to not only take the risk away from you, in that we've hired these fiduciaries to take over the liability with the program, but also in the blue on this slide are all of the things that all of a sudden are not the responsibility of you as the business owner anymore. So it's an interesting way to sort of approach the retirement plan space from the standpoint of task mitigation and liability relief as well. So what's unique about it, again, is that the goal of the program overall is one in which we can try to make this as easy and as simple for you as possible, whether that be through routine transactions that come up that typically you would have to be involved with. We're going to take care of the approvals, whether it's getting your data. Oftentimes organizations use payroll companies, or they use QuickBooks, or they have other service providers that they use for their payroll. Oftentimes there are ways in which we can integrate with those organizations to make capturing that data and the operation of the plan sort of on a going forward basis as smooth and as painless as possible. So it's designed to be easy, but it's also designed to be less risky too, because we have these organizations performing both investment kind of risk management, but also operation and administration risk management as well. And then, as I talked about, the beauty of this is that it's also sort of working very similar to how a co-op might work. So we're trying to aggregate multiple organizations together to gain scale so that we can consistently and proactively reduce pricing for all of the services involved for the plan. So ideally, it's easier, it's less risky, and it's cheaper than what you might find otherwise out on the street. And when I talk about group solutions or pooling solutions, oftentimes there may be a perception that, you know, if I'm joining this group program, all of a sudden I won't have my own way of offering a benefit for my people. I've got to kind of join a master program, or I have to adhere to some of the provisions that are already approved in that arrangement. And what's not the case is that you don't have to do that, right? So every single plan can be designed individually. And so Steve Renner with Rea Associates is here to sort of speak to some of those design nuances that are available to you, whether it be for an organization that has never had a plan before. There are new tax credits and incentives for organizations to think about, implementing one for the first time. But there are also some real interesting advanced plan design tweaks that if you do have a plan, you could potentially look to modify to really skew benefits in favor of certain personnel. So Steve, I'll introduce you here and I'll continue to drive the presentation. Steve?
Sounds good. Thanks, Mike. And thanks to everyone out there that carved a little bit of time out of their day to hear about this program that we've started. So I wanted to touch on something that applies to anybody sitting out there that maybe does not have a plan in place currently for their practice. With the passage of Secure 2.0, they greatly enhanced the startup credit. Basically, it used to be that you could get a credit for 50% on any expenses related to the startup of a retirement plan for the first 3 years it was in place. They increased that credit to 100% of administrative costs up to a cap of $5,000. You can see some of the, if you have a smaller practice where maybe there's only, 2 or 3 individuals, they do limit that to $250 per what in essence would be a staff member, so a non-highly compensated employee. So the $5,000 cap really would apply to somebody that has a much larger practice, but still a nice credit for the startup of the plan, even if you have a smaller practice. The one thing that was added out of Secure 2.0, and this is in effect for the first time this year in 2023, and being part of a CPA firm, we're actually doing a lot of these calculations right now, is you can get a credit for any individual that makes less than $100,000 per year. You can get a credit of up to $1,000 for any employer contributions that are paid into the plan for them. I've done a few calculations recently, like small dental practices where maybe there's 8 or 9 staff members, and the credit is actually offsetting about 70 to 75% of the cost of what they put in for the staff. So it's very powerful credit. That credit is 100% for the first 2 years, and then it scales down to 75, 50, and 25% in years 3, 4, and 5. So you do actually have some credit for up to 5 years. And one last credit I'll mention, and this can be obviously for a startup or if you have an existing plan, is if you add automatic enrollment to that plan, you do get a credit of $500 per year for 3 years. Might go ahead to the next slide there. So yeah, I just wanted to spend a little time on this. These are the annual limits for 2024. So 401k elective deferrals for anybody that's under the age of 50. You can defer up to $23,000 of income. Anyone that's over the age of 50 would have an additional $7,500 of income they could defer in. That can be pre-tax or Roth or a combination of the two. The annual contribution limit I have up there is when you look at contributions in total. So pre-tax deferrals, maybe you do a matching contribution and profit sharing contribution. You can do up to $69,000 for individuals that are over or under the age of 50, and then 76.5 for individuals over the age of 50. One, I'll just point out two key things here. The maximum plan compensation that can be considered is $345,000. So if you have income above that level, we're not able to actually calculate a benefit on that. And then income subject to Social Security was raised again this year up to 168.6. So there are some plan designs where that comes into play as well. So I put together just a quick comparison. I tried to make this for maybe a smaller group, and I utilized 2 attorneys. And I know a popular retirement plan, is, well, we'll just do a SEP contribution. But what I wanted to illustrate with this is in this scenario, if you've got 2 attorneys that are making the maximum compensation, and they're doing a $69,000 contribution into a SEP, they also have to do 20% for each individual on their staff that is eligible for the SEP. And in this scenario, 5 staff members, 2 attorneys, 77% of the contributions going in are actually going to the 2 attorneys. By simply starting a safe harbor 401k plan, we can skew that benefit to the 2 attorneys by a much greater number. In this scenario, we're able to add what's called a 3% safe harbor non-elective contribution that helps with passing non-discrimination testing. And then a 2% profit sharing contribution works in this case. So by adding the 3 levels of contributions, the deferrals, the safe harbor, and the profit sharing for each attorney, and then what we have to put in for the staff, we actually decrease the amounts that have to go in for the staff, and the percentage that's going to the attorneys in this case is 93.7%. And then I have one last illustration to show you, and this would be if you added a cash balance plan. So cash balance plans are essentially another plan that you can layer on top of a 401k plan. Much higher deductible contributions, and they're really designed for profitable businesses, for business owners that ideally are probably 50 years or older. In this scenario, what we're looking at is by adding a cash balance plan, we're actually able to increase both attorneys' contributions here to a total of a total of $300,000 for each of the attorneys, and a minimal cost for the staff. So in most of these scenarios, we're looking at anywhere between 7.5% to 9% of compensation for the staff. In this scenario, we were able to derive 97.6% of the contributions to the 2 attorneys. And, if you have just, say you're a solo practitioner, and you have maybe 1 staff or 2 staff, this is definitely something we could take a look at for you to see if it makes sense and see what type of contributions that you could be getting into a qualified plan to defer on taxable income. And shifting over to Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Thanks, Mike. Just to kind of talk about next steps and who's ideal for this plan. So I would say there's 3 different firms or 3 different types of people that would be ideal for this plan. One would be like Steve just mentioned, somebody who's looking to put away the max amount of money they possibly can from now until the time they retire. 2 would be a firm or individual who's looking to offer benefits to their staff. And then the other one is just a tax break, right? You want to lower your tax burden. Those are 3 ideal candidates, and that could be anywhere from a solo up to 100, 150 man firm. So it's really not about the size. It's really about what are you trying to accomplish with this? Are you trying to lower your tax burden? Are you trying to offer a benefit? Or are you just trying to put away as much as you possibly can from now until the time you retire? All 3 of those are ideal. The other thing I would just kind of mention and bring up, and Dave, you can feel free to chime in as well, is, you know, when we're working with firms or we're working with any business on a retirement plan, the couple things I like to ask is, one, when is the last time you logged into your retirement plan? And when you logged in, what were you looking at? What were you trying to identify? Was it going the way you wanted to? Was it not? You know, if you have a plan already, when's the last time you benchmarked it? The Department of Labor says you should benchmark your plan every 3 to 5 years. Why is that? Because if you don't benchmark your plan and you're not checking against other like funds and other in those same segments, how would you know if your 401k is doing well, right? If we've seen it where we've met with firms that have had the same plan, the same design, the same pretty much fund lineup for years, haven't made any changes. Well, how do you know those are the best funds available today, or the best funds based on other like funds available, right? And that's part of the responsibility that we're going to take over. And as Mike was mentioning, that's part of that responsibility of that investment firm that we work with. They want to make sure they're benchmarking the funds to make sure we have the best fund lineup for you, to make sure that those are the best funds available. There's too many times where somebody's logged into your 401k, but if you're not benchmarking it on a regular basis, how would you know if it's doing well, right? So that's one of the things we want to do. If you have an existing plan, it's time to benchmark it, compare it to this new CMBA plan. If you don't have a plan, but you're just interested in learning more, you know, feel free to reach out. We'd love to sit down and meet with you and talk about some concepts. And Dave, I don't know if you have anything to add, if there's anything else you'd like to mention as well, or even Mike.
No, I think, Jason, you made a great point there at the end, and that's kind of what I was going to reemphasize. I think, you know, all 3 of you did a great job of highlighting the key points. I don't want to be redundant here, but it is a great program for those firms that are smaller or maybe starting out and looking to add a plan. Adding a 401k plan can be intimidating with the administrative burden, the cost. This is a great way to kind of ease into that if that's where you're at. But also those firms, like Jason said, you've had a plan in place, maybe you're not getting a lot of support from your advisor or your administrator, or you haven't looked at it or benchmarked it in many years. We're happy to provide a second opinion, give you some facts and figures, and just compare and contrast how your plan might look versus potentially joining the bar's plan here. So really happy to chat with anybody, dive into your circumstances and see how this might fit and what we might be able to provide to better support what you're looking to accomplish.
Yeah, and if there's any questions, if you have some general questions or any questions about anything we covered today, please feel free to use the chat or the Q&A box. If you have questions about your specific situation and you want to dive in, please reach out to myself, David, or Mel. Anybody at the Cleveland Bar will be able to forward your information to us. Mel's also including some links to the program on the website. and we'd be happy to speak about your specific situation. Just give it a minute here. Let's see if people type in anything.
Maybe you've had a plan in place for a while and haven't explored the cash balance or the profit sharing numbers that Steve was outlining. And if that's something that caught your eye, we're happy to discuss and run some numbers for you as well there.
Couple other, just to kind of piggyback on what Dave was saying there, a couple other things we can talk about is if you have any key employee retentions, if you have any kind of senior partners with junior partners potentially taking over, and you're looking at, is now a good time? How do we fund that? Is there, have you updated your buy sell? There's a lot of things can all be tied into the same financial conversation. All right, so we do have one question just came in. Any idea what the average cost of administration will be? Solo with one additional employee. Also, does the firm need to be incorporated to maximize the benefits of the credits versus the DBA? So we actually will send out the sheet. We're going to have a follow-up that Mel will send out to everybody who attended just to kind of talk about some of this. But I believe, like, on average, if you were to just go out and set up a 401k plan by yourself, the cost could be anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 usually to start up through the CMBA GPS program. I believe, Mike, if you can correct me, I believe the cost is around $750. Is that right?
Yep, a $750 sort of document fee, which again, to your point, is normally 2 to 3 times that amount. And then whether we're talking about investment-based pricing or billables that members would receive, we've tried to really think hard about making sure that all of those numbers are competitive, regardless of where we're starting, right? So if we're starting brand new, those setup fees are half of what they would otherwise be. The annual costs are anywhere between 30 to 70% less than what they would be if we were just looking at a off-the-shelf standalone arrangement. So whether the company is paying for it or the underlying participants are paying for it, we've tried to figure out ways in which we can drive this cost savings down. And as we add more members and more organizations to this group arrangement, those costs will continue to come down over time too. And that's the point. And Steve, I'll let you kind of answer the questions about the credits.
Yeah, I think the question was it corporation, or you don't have to be incorporated. Sole practitioners would actually be able to get a credit in this case, would be able to get a credit for themselves plus the employee. And if you are a solo 401 or a solo practitioner with just one additional employee, then you would be entitled to a $500 credit each year for the first 3 years, and then the employer contribution credit as well.
Right. So between what Mike had laid out and what Steve just laid out, the majority of the cost is going to be pretty much tax credited for the first couple of years. So another just a great reason to get on this program. Good question. Thank you. I think that's it. I think we're good on questions. So at this time, if there's no other questions, we can hand it back to Mel to wrap us up, and feel free to reach out. Mel will hand out our information, and we'd love to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all so much for presenting and being on today. As Jason said, we're going to send a follow-up email with this link to the page on our site, and also the documents that they're going to provide me that go more in detail. We're also going to make a recording of this program available on the page. So if you know of folks that weren't able to attend today, let them know that this will be here as a resource. We appreciate those that joined us today, as this is brand new, and we're excited. And thank you so much, Steve and Mike and Jason and David, for being with us today.
Thank you, Mel. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right,
you.
enjoy the rest of the day.
Thanks.
All right.